Anna tightened her grip on the steering wheel as the dense forest seemed to swallow her car whole. The road was narrow, flanked by towering trees whose branches intertwined like skeletal fingers overhead, blocking out the moonlight. Her headlights flickered oddly, dimming until they eventually gave out completely. She cursed under her breath, pressing the brake gently as the car rolled to a halt. Anna reached for her phone, but its screen was dead. Her watch had stopped as well, the hands frozen at precisely midnight. Stepping out cautiously, she felt the oppressive silence of the forest closing in. The air was unnaturally still. Not even the rustling of leaves disturbed the eerie quiet. Suddenly, a faint whisper brushed past her ears, incomprehensible yet chillingly familiar. "Hello?" Anna called, her voice trembling. Only silence answered, heavy and absolute. Deciding she had no other option, Anna began walking down the dark road, clutching a flashlight that barely pierced the gloom. Shadows danced around her, twisting unnaturally. Every step felt like a mile, her feet sinking slightly into the damp earth beneath her. She stopped abruptly when a beam revealed something hanging from a nearby tree. A tattered weathered doll swinging slowly, its blank eyes fixed on her. Anna backed away, heart racing. She turned, ready to dash back toward her car, but found herself facing a stone structure that hadn't been there moments ago. An old, decrepit house stood tall, windows shattered, door slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Unable to explain why, Anna felt compelled forward, stepping inside the musty interior. The door slammed shut behind her, sealing her in complete darkness. She screamed, pounding desperately on the heavy wooden door. Then, behind her, footsteps echoed, slowly drawing closer. Anna froze, breath caught painfully in her throat. "Anna," a voice whispered softly, close enough to stir the hair on her neck. She spun around, shining her dim flashlight into emptiness. Yet the sense of a presence grew stronger, invisible but undeniably malevolent. The whisper echoed again, a haunting repetition of her name, gradually joined by others. Panicked, she sprinted blindly through rooms and corridors, each hallway stretching impossibly long, each doorway leading back into the same room. Her breath came in ragged gasps, heart pounding violently in her chest. The whispering intensified, becoming a chorus of voices crying her name, merging into a terrifying cacophony. Anna stumbled into what appeared to be a dining room. An enormous table stood in the center, covered in rotting food and crawling with insects. Figures sat motionless in each chair, faces obscured by shadows. She stepped closer, horrified yet compelled. Her flashlight beam revealed decayed, skeletal faces, mouths open in silent screams. With a shriek, Anna turned and fled back into the corridor, stumbling as the house itself seemed to shift and twist around her. Walls pulsated, and the floor seemed to tilt and ripple beneath her feet. She tripped, landing heavily on a floor that felt oddly warm and alive beneath her palms. Dragging herself upright, Anna pressed forward, her flashlight flickering wildly. The whispers now surrounded her entirely, blending with screams and sobs that seemed to resonate from within the very walls. Ahead, a door suddenly creaked open, emitting an eerie greenish glow. Against her better judgment, Anna staggered toward it, desperate for any way out. Inside was a small room bathed in unnatural light, walls covered in strange cryptic symbols that seemed to pulse and shift as she stared. At its center stood a figure cloaked entirely in black, its back turned to her. Anna's breath came in shallow gasps as the figure began to turn slowly. Terrified, she backed away, feeling her back press against something cold and solid. Turning around, she realized it was a large, ornate mirror. But the reflection staring back at her wasn't her own. It was twisted, eyes wide in fear, face pale and gaunt, mouth moving silently, pleading. Anna felt paralyzed as the reflection reached out, fingertips pressing against the glass from within. Suddenly, the mirror shattered, shards cascading to the floor. She stumbled back, narrowly avoiding being cut. Disoriented and desperate, she ran from the room, pursued by echoing laughter and whispers. The house seemed alive now, mocking her attempts to escape. Doors slammed shut as she approached, forcing her into increasingly narrow and claustrophobic passages. Each hallway she entered revealed new horrors. Rooms filled with shadowy figures that moved just beyond her line of sight. Corridors lined with grotesque portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. She heard anguished cries and sinister laughter echoing endlessly. Anna's strength ebbed, exhaustion making her movements sluggish. She stumbled into a vast library, the shelves towering impossibly high, filled with dusty, ancient books. Desperation pushed her forward, hoping to find answers or at least a way out. But the texts were unreadable, filled with unsettling, shifting script. Finally, exhausted and hopeless, Anna collapsed onto the dusty floor of a tiny, windowless chamber, hidden behind a heavy velvet curtain. Darkness closed around her, whispering voices fading into a deafening silence. Just as despair completely overtook her, Anna jolted awake, gasping. Her heart hammered painfully as she realized she was sitting in her car, engine quietly humming, headlights illuminating the empty forest road. She glanced at her phone. 12:01 a.m., the screen glowing reassuringly. With trembling hands, she gripped the wheel again, relieved yet haunted by the vividness of her nightmare. As she drove away, she didn't notice the tattered doll hanging silently from a branch beside the road, gently swaying as if bidding farewell. The car's headlights sliced through the thick fog as it rolled deeper into the isolated forest. Ethan's knuckles whitened as he tightly gripped the steering wheel. Beside him, Olivia sat silently, her breath slightly visible in the cold air. Tension filled the confined space between them, charged with unspoken words and hidden desires. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Olivia finally asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. "The map said this road," Ethan replied curtly, eyes fixed ahead. The dense trees loomed, their twisted branches reaching like skeletal fingers into the road. Minutes stretched as they drove deeper, the silence becoming almost unbearable. Olivia stole glances at Ethan, noticing the tension lining his face. She wondered what secrets weighed him down, what thoughts he concealed behind those distant eyes. Suddenly, the car jolted violently, sputtered and stopped. "Great!" Olivia murmured sarcastically, pulling her coat tighter around her slender frame. "Stay here," Ethan said, opening the door, his voice tense, yet protective. "I'm coming with you," Olivia replied defiantly, following him into the eerie silence of the night. Their flashlights pierced through the darkness as they checked under the hood. Ethan frowned, sensing something strange. It was too quiet, unnaturally quiet. Olivia felt her heart race, the atmosphere heavy and foreboding. A sudden snap echoed through the trees. "Did you hear that?" Olivia whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Ethan raised his finger to his lips, urging silence. His heart thudded heavily in his chest. Another crack, louder and closer. "Let's get back in the car," Ethan whispered urgently, gripping Olivia's arm protectively. As they turned, a shadowy figure emerged from behind a tree, its face hidden by darkness. Ethan's pulse quickened, instinctively placing himself between Olivia and the mysterious stranger. "Lost?" the figure asked mockingly, voice dripping with menace. "We're fine," Ethan replied firmly, though his voice trembled slightly. "Oh, I don't think so," the stranger chuckled darkly. stepping into the dim glow of their flashlights. His eyes gleamed dangerously, a twisted smile forming beneath a sinister scar on his cheek. Panic surged within Olivia. She grasped Ethan's arm tightly, her body trembling. "What do you want?" Ethan demanded, attempting to mask his fear with defiance. "Everything," the stranger replied chillingly, drawing a blade from his coat. Ethan lunged forward instinctively, fighting to protect Olivia. The struggle was brief and brutal, filled with the sounds of grunts and gasps. Olivia watched, frozen in terror, as Ethan finally managed to disarm their attacker, the knife tumbling onto the forest floor. Breathing heavily, Ethan stood over the defeated man, eyes blazing with rage and adrenaline. Olivia rushed forward, wrapping her arms around Ethan, desperate to feel safe again. In that dark, horrifying moment, their suppressed emotions burst forth, the shared terror and survival igniting something deep and primal between them. Together, they quickly tied the stranger's hands, using Ethan's belt. As they decided their next move, Olivia suggested they try to find a signal or help nearby. With no other option, they ventured into the forest, leaving the tied attacker behind. The forest grew thicker and more oppressive with each step. Shadows danced menacingly under the weak flashlight beams, their imaginations conjuring unseen threats lurking in every rustle of leaves. Time seemed to crawl painfully as they trudged deeper into the darkness. Eventually, they stumbled upon an old abandoned cabin hidden among the trees. The wood was rotted, windows shattered, but it offered temporary shelter. They cautiously entered, the creaking door echoing ominously. Inside, they found signs of past inhabitants, a rusted lantern, ancient furniture, and faded photographs covered in dust. Olivia felt an inexplicable sadness permeate the cabin, as if the walls themselves mourned forgotten memories. A noise outside the cabin jolted them back to alertness. Peering carefully through a broken window, Ethan saw another figure slowly approaching. Their attacker had somehow freed himself. Panic surged again, but this time it mixed with determination. Ethan quickly barricaded the door with furniture. Olivia searched frantically for anything useful, discovering a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside, she found a journal filled with disturbing entries of obsession, murder, and madness. The entries described multiple victims lost in the forest, hunted by a predator who relished their fear. Olivia's blood ran cold, realizing they were trapped in the lair of a serial killer. Outside, the attacker began pounding on the cabin door, laughing madly. Ethan grabbed a heavy wooden chair, ready to defend Olivia with everything he had. The confrontation was inevitable. As the door splintered open, Ethan and Olivia braced themselves, their hearts entwined in both fear and defiance. Their struggle for survival had just begun, and the night promised only darkness, terror, and a desperate fight for their lives. It was supposed to be a peaceful family trip. Mark and Sarah had planned this getaway to mend their strained marriage, hoping a quiet weekend in the mountains with their teenage daughter, Emily, would help reconnect them. The old sedan hummed along the winding forest road, headlights cutting a feeble path through dense mist and towering pines. "Dad, are we lost?" Emily asked, peering nervously out the foggy window. The trees seemed unnaturally close, branches like twisted fingers reaching towards the car. "No, sweetheart," Mark replied, hiding his uncertainty. His GPS had stopped updating miles back. Now the phone signal was completely gone. Sarah tightened her grip on the door handle, sensing Mark's anxiety. "Maybe we should have turned back when the fog rolled in." "It's just a little further," Mark insisted, his voice strained. Suddenly, The engine sputtered, coughing violently. Mark cursed under his breath, pressing the accelerator desperately. But the car shuddered to a stop. Silence settled over them, thick and oppressive. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark turned the key again. "Nothing. I think we're stranded." Outside, shadows shifted subtly between the trees. Emily squinted into the darkness. Did anyone else see that? Sarah glanced nervously at her daughter. "See what, honey?" "Something moved, like someone watching us." Emily's voice trembled. "Probably just animals," Mark said quickly, masking his own rising fear. A sudden chilling whisper drifted through the open car vents, barely audible but filled with unmistakable malice. "Get out!" Sarah gasped, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" Before anyone could respond, a sharp knock sounded from the car roof, causing everyone to scream. "Dad, let's get out of here!" Emily pleaded. Mark grabbed a flashlight from the glove box, hands shaking. "Stay here, I'll check it out." "No, Mark," Sarah begged, grabbing his arm. "Don't go outside." Ignoring her pleas, Mark opened the door slowly. The cold forest air rushed in, stinging like needles. He stepped onto the damp earth, flashlight beams shaking wildly. Trees towered ominously overhead, stretching into darkness. Another whisper, closer this time, rustled through leaves. "Leave." His blood ran cold. He swung the flashlight wildly, catching fleeting glimpses of shadows darting between trunks. They were human-shaped but distorted, moving unnaturally fast. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice cracking. Inside the car, Sarah and Emily clung tightly to each other. "Dad, come back!" Emily screamed. Suddenly, an unseen force slammed into Mark, knocking him off his feet. The flashlight flew from his hand. Spinning wildly on the ground, he scrambled upright, lunging desperately toward the car, but the shadows blocked his path. "Mark!" Sarah cried, opening her door to help him. Before she could step out, something grabbed her ankle, violently dragging her away from the vehicle. Her screams echoed through the forest. "Mum!" Emily shrieked, panicked tears streaming down her face. "Emily, lock the doors!" Mark shouted, struggling against invisible hands pulling him backward. "Don't open them for anything!" The doors slammed shut on their own, locks clicking ominously. Emily was trapped, watching helplessly as her parents vanished into the darkness. Silence. She was alone. Then a cold breath whispered against her neck. "You're next!" Heart pounding, Emily scrambled over the seats, desperately searching for a weapon. The whispers grew louder, circling the car, clawing at windows, pressing inward. Hours passed, each second a torturous eternity filled with haunting murmurs and unseen threats. Just as dawn broke, a blinding light illuminated the scene, cutting sharply through the shadows. A park ranger's truck had appeared on the road behind her, headlights piercing the nightmare. The shadows hissed and scattered into the darkness. Emily flung open the car door, running toward the ranger. "Help me! They took my parents!" The ranger, an older man with a grim expression, nodded knowingly. "You're not the first. This forest doesn't like visitors after dark." Emily stared desperately into the dense woods. "We have to find them." The ranger shook his head solemnly. "They're gone. We must leave or we'll be next." As he guided her trembling form toward his truck, Emily glanced back one final time. In the darkness between trees, shadowy figures stood watching. their ghostly whispers promising they'd meet again. Years later, Emily would often return in nightmares to that cursed forest, hearing her parents' cries, still pleading for help, forever trapped by the dark forces that had claimed them. And somewhere deep within those twisted trees, something waited patiently, knowing one day she'd return. But Emily never went back. She spent her life warning others, sharing her story, hoping to save someone else from the fate her family suffered. Yet deep inside, she always felt a pull, an invisible thread tying her to that haunted place, a connection she knew could never truly be broken.